Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Gerard.
So welcome everyone to another episode of the Artsy Raven. And today we are going to talk about freelance writing, editing, and self-publishing with Kirsten McNeill. Canadian self-published author Kirsten strives to connect with people through her words and inspire the world to reach its full potential. Her stories and poetry are based on her own knowledge and experiences. Though they are mostly fictional, they speak her truth about today's societal pressures and the world we live in. In her spare time, she runs her own blog, plays piano and guitar, and hangs out with her family. She fully supports all things artistic and creative as she speaks her mind and lets her own creativity flow into words on the page. Her website is kirstenmcneill.com. So thank you, Kirsten, for being on our show today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background and how you got into this whole freelance writing and editing gig?
Yeah, so I was born and raised in British Columbia. Reading, writing, and music have always been something that has inspired me. Anything creative, really. Ever since I was little, I wanted to be a writer, but I didn't seriously get into it until about 2015 when I graduated college. And to improve my skills further from the creative writing courses I took in college, I always try to read informational books, take online courses, and join groups online to learn from others that way. Since then, I've been writing books and stories and helping others create content for websites, editing novels, and several other tasks like that. I have published 2 books, I have a blog, and I'm always looking for new ways to connect with the writing community. One of the biggest themes on my social media involves positivity and empowerment. And I think that's something that all of us really need more of in our lives. And I just love encouraging writers to live out their dreams.
I was gonna say, yeah, as a writer, you do live with a lot of rejection a lot of times, especially if you're really trying to get your pieces out
Yep,
there, and it's such a
definitely.
subjective thing. Now, what did you do your schooling in? Was it in creative writing, like you did a bachelor or a college?
I I started out with creative writing, and I was going towards an Associate of Arts degree. And it's kind of funny actually because I took enough courses to get a degree in sociology. So I took a bunch of like creative writing courses, but my degree is actually in sociology just because that's the credits that I managed to work out in the college that I was doing. I found that like the schooling that I got through like college and stuff, it just wasn't really right for me. And I just wanted to get into the career and get into the work and start going. So I did want to complete some type of degree. So I have an Associate of Arts degree.
I was gonna say degrees are overrated, but anyhow,
Yeah.
um, so how does freelance writing work? Like, to my knowledge, is you sort of query magazines or other places and you pitch, and then they take the pitch and they pay you? Like, is that how it works?
For when I first started out, that was kind of what I did because that was all that I knew about. So, like newspapers and blogs, you try to find places where you can be noticeable online and stuff like that. But most of the work that I do right now is with helping self-published authors create their copywriting. So newsletters, social posts, blogs, anything to promote the book. So for me, the best method that I found was just building connections with other authors and being consistent in my social media to share what I'm all about and the work that I do. And sometimes, I don't have as many projects to work on, so I kind of make my own work, whether like writing my own novels or, creating like different content for writing courses. And, all of it comes together just to kind of keep me busy and make a living that kind of works for me. And I kind of find my own path that way.
Okay, so you started off as freelance writing, but then the more sort of steady work is actually with self-published authors and helping people get their work out. So I guess it's almost like you've become an entrepreneur, really. I mean, because you're
Yeah.
sort of selling a business, right? So in the beginning, how did you do it? You put together a website first, and then you did some Facebook ads or something, or?
Yeah, I mean, at first it was a lot of like social media. Um, I'm not very in tune with the best ways to, be a social media expert and all that. But I do try my best on Instagram. And when I did have my website up, I launched my website back in 2019. So that was really beneficial to have, just to have all of my stuff out there, all my like testimonials and my portfolio, and just a way for people to get to learn about me.
And I guess word of mouth, right? Like other people would
Yeah,
recommend to their
absolutely.
friends. I think that helps a lot. Now, when you were doing freelance writing, like did you find doing that work made you a better writer for your creative stuff as well?
I think so, yeah, because, the more that you write and the more different types of things that you do write in different genres, different styles, you will learn and you will grow, especially if you have feedback from other people and like the clients that you work with.
Okay. So did you ever have to deal with rejection when you were a freelance writer with your pieces?
Absolutely. That is always something that you deal with. And there's always that little sting when someone doesn't think your work is like absolutely perfect. But I just have to remind myself that, every person has their own vision of what they want. And sometimes it might be hard to communicate exactly what they need. So it just requires a few tweaks here and there. I've learned that I just have to do my best to create something and understand that it's a collaborative process to create what the client needs.
What's the best freelance piece you think you ever did and sold somewhere?
Best. I think my best pieces, especially for small businesses, which I don't do anymore, but I did a
Mhm.
lot of when I first started out. One of my favorite pieces are like the about pages because it's really a balance of, we're sharing facts about this person and their business, but you get to be a little more creative with it and you get to show off their passion for their work or the different accomplishments they've had. So those pieces are always really fun.
Okay. So do you have any advice for writers as an editor? Like before they send you something, is there something they should clean up?
Um, the the more that you have in a piece, I find it's easier to edit down and to find which key pieces are really there. So I find that, before you send work off to an editor, you do kind of want to have some level of, a final copy piece, and then you can just kind of work it down and find new ways to, because when you're working it on yourself, you might not find certain things that like when a fresh pair of eyes is on it, then you kind of get new ideas, a different perspective. So there's kind of that nice balance of, you still have a completed piece, but then we're going to have an editor come in and, tweak it and work on it.
So what kind of editing do you offer? Like there's like different types, right? There's the content editing and the in-depth.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the in-depth and then the copy editing. Oh my goodness. So I
Yeah.
guess
So,
yeah. So I guess people approach you and they ask, or do you evaluate and you tell them you need this?
I mean, for the most part, it is about what the author thinks they need. And I usually just explain what type of editing I do, because sometimes there is a bit of an overlap of the editing, especially with like copy editing as opposed to line editing. That's something that I like to combine because that's a lot of the technical structure. So if someone doesn't understand like what the type of editing is, then you kind of just explain and maybe there is a better one that they need at that point. So it is kind of like a back and forth. And usually if someone's at like the later stages of their drafts, then it's just like maybe a proofread, whereas, the beginning drafts are more like developmental just to get the story out and the plot and get all the characters together.
So you have a pretty active blog and social media. I think on Instagram you were telling me before you're doing some weekly thing. Do you want to explain a little bit about your weekly positivity?
Yeah. On Instagram, I do like Instagram lives and I have like a different theme every week. So the first week of the month, I usually try to do something positive and encouraging and stuff like that, just to, get motivation up and high energy. And then I do like a writing live and then editing just to give people a chance to ask questions or just chat about what they're working on as well. I usually just do like 15-20 minutes, just kind of chat about what I'm working on, see if anyone has questions. And yeah, I found Instagram has a really strong writing community. So I really like being on there, and it's such a visual platform that it's just fun to create graphics and connect with people on lives and things like that.
Okay, I've never tried doing one, but like can you see the people? Is it like a Zoom call on the Instagram live?
No, it's just you, but you can see like their comments and stuff. It's so funny you mentioned that because the first time I did a live, my dad thought that it was like a phone call and he was like yelling at the screen as my mom was watching my live, and she's just like, "Go away. It's not meant to be two ways. She just talks to you and then you can write a comment."
Oh, wow. Are there any other writers in your family?
No, I'm the writer of the family, but all of us are pretty well read and avid readers, so it's nice to get feedback from them as well when I'm on like my first drafts.
That's pretty cool. So how do you balance your work and life? Because I think editing, it takes up a lot of time, and writing takes up a lot of time too. So how many hours do you do a day of each? Or
Yeah, it does take up a lot of time, but since I'm doing this as full-time work, it's a lot easier for me to balance it all. I'm usually a morning person, so I like to get started pretty quickly during the day, and then I kind of do like an average work week, like 9 to 5 or like 9 to 4, just to be productive. And since I know that I'm more energized and more productive in the morning, I can do a lot of like the bigger projects or like the tougher pieces first thing. And then I can every day I start just writing a list of things that I need to work on. And usually when I have deadlines, I can break up each day like how much I'm going to do, and then it usually works out pretty well because I'm pretty good at staying organized.
do you have any habits that you have to like get ready before you start? You listen to music or anything like that?
Not really. I find that I have to work in pretty silent work areas. I find music, because I like to like sing and dance and stuff. I get distracted by the music, so it's easier for me to just kind of find a peaceful place, and then I write out my tasks for the day, and that's usually kind of like my little routine, and then check my emails and then get started. So that works pretty well.
Now, you also self-publish some books. So why did you decide to self-publish versus the traditional route?
Yeah, so back in 2017, I was working on my first published book, which is a short story collection. And it was something that I was really excited to share, and I just wanted to do it now. If I didn't get it out, then like I thought I never would, and I would just keep editing it, tweaking it, and it just never would get out there. So I just decided to choose a release date, and that would be when I would release it, and I would have to finish it by then, and no questions, no arguments. That would be my plan, right? So with self-publishing, I like that I have that control and the power to make all those types of decisions, and I think it's a really viable option for any author, because I know self-published does get kind of a bad rap for not being traditional and flooding the market with just tons of pieces. And but there are a lot of hardworking authors who just want to share their work, and this is just one of the many options that are available. So it really all depends on author preference, and I really love it and I enjoy the work that goes into it, and I get to decide everything about cover design and formatting and book launches. So it is a lot of responsibility, but being able to be the whole process and understand the whole process and be there every step of the way is something that really works for me.
This kind of reminds me of this Christopher Walken quotes, this actor who was talking. I think he
Yeah.
was asked about being in good movies and bad movies, and he's like, it doesn't matter. It's still a lot of work to be in a movie, whether it's good or bad.
Yeah,
And it's the same thing with
absolutely.
self-publishing. Like you say, it could be a good book or a bad book, but I think people don't understand how much work it is to actually self-publish, even if it's a bad book. Um,
Yeah, for sure.
did you end up designing your covers, or did you buy a stock art, or?
At first, when I first published the book, I actually had a friend take pictures of me, and like I was on like the front cover, but like my face wasn't shown. But it was just like we went to like this park, and it was just we took some like scenic photos, and that was um my cover. But after a while, I wanted to like freshen it up and create something new, so I did hire Michelle Fresh Design in Victoria. She did my newest cover, so that was nice to have something fresh and something that really looks like a nice published book.
And that's something you can control because usually in traditional, the authors don't really have much
Absolutely.
of a say. Um, so do you have any advice for people who want to self-publish?
I would say to do your research on your options, because there's so many self-publishing platforms. There's so many small traditional publishers, and of course there's the big names, and there's people you can query to, that there's like agents and stuff like that. So you kind of have to do your research of what's going to be the best option for you, and look into your genre that you're publishing in, and look at covers and titles, and understand what's already out there. Especially if you're like self-publishing, you want to show that you've put in the effort to like be unique and not just like try to copy somebody. But just remember that like when you're self-publishing, all the final decisions fall with you, so you really have to be happy with the book that you're putting out and be proud of it, because you got to create something that you really want to read, and build your community of readers and writers even before you publish. That's one thing too that people I think forget about. Like, if you don't have books yet, I can't build my community, I can't promote yet, but there's still so many opportunities to connect with readers and writers before you even have a book.
Yeah, and I think people sort of forget that. Like writing it is one thing, but then when you're actually publishing it and marketing it, it's like you have to shut off your creative side almost and sort of think of
Yeah.
the technical stuff. Like how are you gonna get word out there that there's this book, right? So so it is very interesting. Did you have to learn any software to do your self-publishing, or was there a high learning curve for doing this?
For what I use to publish, I use Amazon correct Kindle Direct Publishing. So their platform is pretty simple. Um, I know with their ebooks, if you want to publish a certain format, they do require certain technical things, but I know there's a program called Calibre that can transfer your manuscript from like a Word doc to like their proper specifications. So it's pretty simple. There's not really a specific program that I use, because I really just write my books in Microsoft Word, and then I just convert it from there. And Amazon's pretty good about showing their specifications and help documents and stuff to make sure that you've got it all right.
So you only publish on Amazon, or do you publish anywhere else?
Yes, for I'm trying to expand my ebooks for paperback. Amazon is like the easiest way for me to ship those books like all over the world as far as possible. But for ebooks, I'm trying to expand more. I know Kobo is an option that's pretty popular in Canada, so I'm trying to get on that. And as well with paperbacks, I buy author copies from Amazon, and then I'm also selling them on my online store. So there's a couple options, but those are kind of the easiest for me since I'm doing it all myself.
Yeah, there's been a few like with the Ingram Sparks and the
hmm
Lulus and the Draft to Digital and the Smashwords, but I think they're almost all overlapping. So it's almost like when if you do multiple sites, you have to be careful of what you click
Yeah.
because well, you're already selling it, so you can't let me sell it too, right? So
Yeah, I
um,
think some authors get overwhelmed by, oh, there's so many platforms and I need to be on them all. But I think it just depends on what your preference is and what you like working with the best. So, picking like two or three, even one just to start with is good, because there's so many options, and you don't have to be on all of them. You just have to find what works best for you.
now, have you ever had to deal with a negative review?
Um, I try not to read all of my reviews because that can kind of really affect you because one of the things that you have to remember as an author is that, things can get really subjective. And if someone doesn't like the work that you're doing, that's not like an attack on you. That's just their personal preference and what they enjoyed reading. I wouldn't say that I've had a review of someone saying like, "Oh, I hated it" or something. I've had like 3 to 5 star reviews, all varying opinions. It is hard when people don't just say, "Oh, this is great, I loved it," but when there is feedback that is like constructive, you kind of have to decide if you want to really take it to heart and bring it forward when you write your next book. I try not to go back and like change everything based off of reviews that I see because if you try to please everybody, it's just not going to work. So I do try to read all the reviews and kind of take them into consideration before I react to them, but it is difficult sometimes.
Yeah, you get very emotional. You're like, "This is my baby, and you're
Yeah,
telling me it's ugly."
exactly.
Have you ever thought about audiobooks? I think there's a lot of hype about that.
I have thought about it, but I know there's a lot of work that goes into formatting it properly and getting someone to do the voiceover. So maybe down the road that might be something I look at, but right now I'm just focusing on paperback and ebooks.
Have you ever done any Amazon ads or tried?
I tried to do it once, I think when I first started out with my short story collection, because it was only published on Amazon from the States. So it was just it's a little bit difficult for me just to navigate all that. But I know a lot of authors have been really successful with Amazon ads and sales and things like that.
Okay, cool. So you have print stock that you sell on your website. Is it like an autographed edition? Is that why you do it?
Yeah, I have my short story collection will be out soon, but my book that I released last year is my self-improvement kind of nonfiction empowerment book. I do have signed copies, and I do include a bookmark and a couple stickers as well. So it's nice to be able to add that little personal touch that you can't get just from buying off Amazon.
Okay, cool. So I think we can probably wrap up this interview. So I would like to thank you, Christine, for being here. And Kirstine offers professional editing, copywriting, and personal writing services through KM Writing Services at her website, kirstemcneil.com, and we'll have a little link in the podcast description that you can click. So thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you for having me.
For more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarrard.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.